Welcome to the 2 a.m. Theory Podcast. This is where late night thoughts turn into late night conversation.
Imagine it is 6:45 a.m. The sun is just starting to peek through the blinds, right? Casting those long, quiet shadows across your bedroom floor.
Yeah, that classic early morning stillness.
Exactly. And you hear the familiar chime of your alarm.
Yeah.
You roll over, rub the sleep out of your eyes, and you reach for your phone.
Like we all do.
Right. The movement is just entirely subconscious at this point. It's pure muscle memory, like wired directly into your basal ganglia.
Solely hardwired.
So you unlock the screen, but, and here's the catch, there is no Instagram to open.
Wow.
There is no TikTok to scroll through,
Yeah.
no X, no Facebook, no Snapchat, no Threads, none of it.
Just blank space where those icons usually sit.
Yeah, and it's not because the servers are down or, your Wi-Fi is acting up. It is because they were never invented.
Man, it creates this really fascinating dissonance in the modern brain just simply trying to simulate that reality. Because the architecture of our mornings has become so tethered to that, like that initial influx of external stimuli. Removing it feels less like a missing app and more like waking up completely deaf to the outside world.
Exactly. I mean, the internet still exists in this scenario. Smartphones still exist.
Yeah.
We still have the sum total of human knowledge sitting right there on our nightstands. But somewhere in the late 90s or early 2000s, humanity just took a sharp left turn.
We built the utility, but we never built the stage.
I love that way of putting it. So welcome to this deep dive. We are calling this one the 2 a.m. Theory, episode 13, What If Social Media Never Existed?
It's a big one.
It really is. Today, our mission is to explore the mechanics of this alternate present. We want to dig into whether the social internet elevated our species, fractured our psychology, or maybe simply held up a giant, inescapable mirror to the biological wiring we've possessed for 200,000 years.
Yeah, and to map out this alternate reality, we are triangulating a few highly specific data sets alongside some prominent narrative thought experiments.
Which is going to be wild to unpack.
Oh, absolutely. So we are pulling historical internet and technology adoption metrics from our world in data just to understand the baseline of global connectivity.
Right.
Then we're layering in this incredibly detailed 2025 and 2026 research from the Pew Research Center.
That Pew data is fresh, too.
Very fresh. It maps out our current news consumption habits, our interactions with algorithms, and just the general digital landscape today.
And we also have the health data, right?
Yes. Finally, to understand the physiological toll of all this, we are analyzing the latest public health surveillance data from the CDC's Youth Risk Behavior Surveillance System, or the YRBSS.
So our goal here is to reverse engineer the modern psyche by stripping away its most dominant variable.
Exactly.
We want to synthesize these massive data sets to build an undeniable picture of the trade-offs we made when we, digitized our social lives. Let's jump right back into that 6:45 a.m. scenario.
Let's do it.
So we are in June 2025 of this alternate timeline. You are lying in bed. You check the weather app. It says it's going to be sunny, 78 degrees. You check your text messages. You have three.
Just three.
Just three. One from your buddy about a soccer league, one from your fiance, and one from your dad. You open up ESPN to check the box scores from last night's games. You read a single finite article, and then you just put the phone down.
Right. Because the concept of the infinite scroll, it just does not exist.
It's crazy to imagine.
It is. What's fascinating here is the user interface of this ultimate internet operates on a principle of completion.
Completion, I like that.
Yeah, you sought a specific piece of information, you retrieved it, and the interaction naturally terminates. There is no algorithm working tirelessly in the background, like rendering the next piece of content to seamlessly hook your attention before the logical conclusion of your current task.
So you actually get out of bed, you go to the kitchen, start making coffee, and stare out the window. And the thought experiment really highlights this profound sense of silence.
A very specific kind of silence.
Yeah. The hum of the refrigerator is suddenly the loudest thing in your house. But it's crucial to note that this silence doesn't equate to loneliness.
Right.
It's just an absence of ambient noise.
Yeah, and we really need to analyze the actual utility of global connectivity versus the performance of it.
What do you mean by the performance of it?
Well, if we look at our world in data metrics, 63% of the entire world's population was online by 2023.
That's a massive number.
Huge.
Hmm.
In our reality, that translates to billions of human beings constantly broadcasting their internal states, their political opinions, their breakfast choices into a shared digital ether.
The performance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But in a world without social media, that 63% adoption rate represents pure, unadulterated utility.
Right.
You are using the network to route a package or to send a direct message to a specific human for a specific logistical reason or, to research a topic. The internet in this timeline remains a library and a post office. It never morphed into a stadium.
Man, a library and a post office versus a stadium. That's so true. I keep thinking about the physical sensation of that transition, though. It feels mechanical, almost like a phantom limb.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Right. Like, the literature on amputees describes how the brain's motor cortex will continue sending signals to a severed limb, resulting in a sensation of itching or cramping in empty space.
Right, because the pathways are still active.
Exactly. The neural pathways are still searching for a physical endpoint that just no longer exists. If we suddenly woke up in this alternate timeline, our thumbs would instinctively execute that little upward flick.
Scroll reflex.
Yes. We would be bracing for the algorithmic slot machine to feed us a colorful image or a hit of outrage. The digital appendage has been amputated, the muscle memory remains entirely intact, but the dopamine delivery system has been ripped out of the wall.
And that neurochemical withdrawal is exactly the mechanism at play here.
It's physical.
It's completely physical. The brain is firing off an anticipation response. It's releasing a baseline level of dopamine just before you unlock the phone because it expects the variable reward.
And when it doesn't get it.
When the reward doesn't arrive, you experience a microcrash. And because you are no longer artificially stimulated by the device, your relationship with your immediate physical environment is forced to reset.
Wow.
The sources outline a brilliant example of how this plays out in a mundane Tuesday morning break room scenario.
Oh, right, the break room scene. That one is fascinating because it completely redefines the velocity of human interaction.
Yes.
In this alternate world, you commute to work. The drivers around you are actually looking at the road, not doing the knee steer while filming a commute vlog.
Which is terrifying that we accept that as normal now.
Totally normal now. But anyway, you walk into the office break room to heat up your lunch. A coworker walks in, grabs a coffee, and says, "Hey, did you hear? I'm engaged."
And in that enclosed space, the information lands with the force of a localized earthquake.
The room just erupts. People are standing up, cheering, physically embracing this person. And the realization hits you. This news is genuinely, undeniably new.
Truly new.
Nobody saw a cryptic photo of a ring silhouetted against a sunset on an Instagram story 3 weeks prior.
Or tapped a little heart icon on a polished Facebook announcement.
Exactly. Every single person in that physical room is processing a life-altering piece of information for the absolute first time, synchronously. The surprise is completely untainted by prior digital signaling.
What's fascinating here is we're observing the difference between acute awareness and ambient awareness.
Ambient awareness, break that down for me.
Sure. In our real 2026, social media has forced us into a state of perpetual ambient awareness. We maintain these low-resolution continuous data streams regarding the lives of hundreds, if not thousands of people.
Right.
We know our cousins' dietary preferences. We know a high school classmate's political radicalization.
Which is always a fun one to discover.
Right. And we know our coworker got engaged the second the ring went on the finger. We are practically omniscient, but entirely passive.
Omniscient but passive.
Yeah. The information trickles in continuously, and that dilutes the emotional impact. In the alternate timeline, information moves slowly, but it carries a massive emotional payload when it actually arrives.
Because it's concentrated.
Exactly. You are experiencing the raw, unfiltered joy of synchronous discovery.
Man, if we extrapolate that beyond our immediate social circles, it completely alters how we approach the unknown.
Completely.
Like, if we don't possess this ambient omniscience, how do we handle complete strangers?
That's the real test.
Let's take the scenario of going to a bar after work. You're sitting there, sipping a drink, and across the room, someone catches your eye.
Classic setup.
In our current digital ecosystem, if you manage to overhear their first name and say, "Notice they are wearing a specific company's lanyard," you could realistically cross-reference LinkedIn and TikTok and map out their entire psychological profile before your glass is even empty.
It's true. It takes 5 minutes.
Less. You can discover their political leanings, their ex-partners, their vacation history, and their aesthetic preferences while basically hiding behind a menu.
Which means you are bypassing the foundational friction of human courtship.
Yeah.
You are substituting vulnerability with surveillance.
Substituting vulnerability with surveillance. That is a heavy way to put it. But in the timeline, without social platforms, that person across the bar is a terrifyingly blank slate.
Completely opaque.
The only mechanism available to extract data about them is to literally command your physical body to walk across the room, make sustained eye contact, and initiate unscripted verbal communication.
Terrifying.
Reading that scenario in the sources, the overwhelming feeling is dread, honestly, followed immediately by this strange sense of liberation.
And that liberation comes from stripping away the digital panopticon.
Explain the panopticon part.
Well, if we analyze the 1995 to 2005 era, the dial-up era, right?
Yeah.
Characterized by enclosed chat rooms and shared family computers.
Getting yelled at to get off the internet so mom could use the phone.
Exactly. Meeting people required integration into physical communities. You met through a coworker, or at a concert, or in a classroom.
There was your context.
There's a built-in physical vetting process. Today, the landscape is dominated by dating applications that operate on the exact same psychological infrastructure as social media.
The swipe is just a horizontal scroll.
It introduces massive choice overload, algorithmic matchmaking that prioritizes engagement over compatibility, and the normalization of ghosting.
Which feels awful.
It does. But ghosting is merely the psychological byproduct of interacting with a two-dimensional profile rather than a three-dimensional human embedded in your actual social network.
Okay, so what does this all mean? I have to challenge this narrative slightly because it feels dangerously close to romanticizing a past that had its own deep flaws.
That's a fair point. Let's dig into that.
Are we certain that people today are merely treating each other as disposable profiles? If we look at human history, wasn't the bar scene in 1995 just a different flavor of superficiality?
In what way?
Well, people were judging each other based on the brand of their shoes, their posture, or the perceived status of the people they walked in with. It was still a split-second, visually driven assessment.
Right.
Did the 90s really offer a profound mystery, or did it just lack the metadata we have today? Are we actually worse off knowing someone's values before we invest a month into dating them?
That is a highly critical distinction, and I'm glad you brought it up. The argument isn't that human attraction prior to the internet was some bastion of pure intellectual depth.
Right, we're still primates.
Exactly. Evolutionary biology dictates that we use visual heuristics to assess mates. However, the mechanism of discovery has been entirely inverted.
How so?
There's a fundamental difference between depth of character and breadth of data.
Okay, I'm listening.
When you encounter someone's digital footprint in 2026, you are not discovering who they are. You're consuming their curated public relations campaign.
Oh, wow.
You are absorbing the highlights, the tested jokes, the tailored aesthetics that they have specifically optimized for public consumption. Social media didn't just give us metadata. It incentivized everyone to become their own brand manager.
So you are saying we traded the awkwardness of mutual discovery for the efficiency of reviewing a resume.
Precisely. In the alternate timeline, you are forced to discover a person chronologically through shared experiences, spontaneous reactions, and unguarded moments.
Yeah.
You have to earn the data.
Earn the data.
Yeah. Furthermore, we lost a very specific type of freedom, the freedom to be temporarily unperceived.
Yes. Think about the mechanics of a Sunday afternoon in 1998 versus 2026.
Total contrast.
If I'm unreachable for 4 hours on a Sunday today, my phone essentially becomes a tracking device. Friends check to see if my location is broadcasting on SnapMap or Find My Friends. They look to see if the message they sent has a read receipt. The absence of an immediate response is immediately interpreted as a crisis or a deliberate slight.
We exchange the tranquility of being unknown for the security of constant, low-level surveillance.
It's exhausting.
It is. We are perpetually tethered to the collective consciousness.
And if that level of constant tethering is exhausting for adults whose prefrontal cortexes are fully developed, the implications for youth are terrifying.
Completely different ballgame.
We are talking about brains that are actively building their neural pathways while plugged into this architecture. The 2025 data from the Pew Research Center doesn't just suggest a shift in behavior, it suggests a total rewiring of adolescent development.
The Pew data is unambiguous on this. Roughly 1 in 5 U.S. teens self-report that they are on platforms like TikTok and YouTube almost constantly.
Almost constantly. That phrasing is wild.
Almost constantly. This is not casual consumption. It is continuous partial attention spanning their entire waking life. But perhaps the most jarring metric from the 2025 and 2026 research is the adoption of generative AI.
Oh, right, the AI chatbots.
Yeah, 64% of teens are using AI chatbots, and nearly 30% are interacting with these artificial intelligences on a daily basis.
Daily, we really have to unpack the mechanics of that. Why is a teenager choosing to converse with a large language model every single day?
Well, what's your take on it based on the data?
It's because the LLM is designed to offer frictionless empathy.
Frictionless empathy, yes.
It never gets tired, it never judges, it perfectly mirrors the user's conversational cadence, and it's explicitly programmed to validate the user.
Always agreeable.
Always. It is emotional scaffolding without the requisite friction of actual human relationships.
And this brings us directly to the CDC's Youth Risk Behavior Surveillance System data.
The YRBSS?
Right. The YRBSS monitors foundational biological behavior, sleep patterns, physical activity, dietary habits. While we must be careful not to conflate correlation with absolute causation, the public health sector is currently obsessed with the intersection of constant algorithmic engagement and the collapse of basic adolescent sleep hygiene.
Because the algorithm is fundamentally predatory.
It's designed to be.
Let's look at the underlying psychology. We throw around terms like doom scrolling or validation addiction, but the architecture of these platforms is lifted directly from mid-century behaviorism.
Yeah.
It is B.F. Skinner's operant conditioning mapped onto a global scale.
Right. And for those who might not remember Psych 101, Skinner demonstrated that if you put a pigeon in a box and give it a pellet of food every single time it pecks a button, the pigeon learns the behavior, but it only pecks when it's hungry.
Makes sense.
But if you introduce a variable ratio schedule where the pigeon pecks the button and sometimes gets one pellet, sometimes gets nothing, and occasionally gets a massive jackpot of pellets, the pigeon will peck the button obsessively until it collapses from exhaustion.
Oh, man.
The unpredictability creates a neurochemical compulsion.
And the pull to refresh feature on a timeline is the exact mechanical equivalent of the slot machine lever.
Exactly the same.
You drag your thumb down, the little loading icon spins, and your brain just holds its breath.
Waiting for the jackpot.
Are you going to get a mundane update from a local business, or are you going to get a viral video that floods your system with dopamine? Or, conversely, are you going to get a notification that someone is actively attacking your character?
And the negative reinforcement is actually far more potent.
Really? More than the dopamine hit?
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Human neurobiology features a deep-seated negativity bias. In a hunter-gatherer context, paying more attention to the rustle in the bushes that might be a tiger rather than, the beautiful sunset, that's what kept you alive.
Better safe than sorry.
Right. We evolved to prioritize threats. Today, a threat is a subjective attack on our social standing broadcast to thousands of people.
That makes so much sense.
You can receive 50 comments praising your work, but the single comment from an anonymous profile mocking your voice is the one that will hijack your amygdala and keep your cortisol spiking at 2 a.m.
And the scale is just completely unnatural. The literature frequently references the Dunbar number, right?
Yes, a crucial concept here.
It's the anthropological theory that the human brain possesses the cognitive capacity to maintain stable social relationships with roughly 150 people.
That was the size of the tribal village.
Exactly. We evolved to manage our reputation within a closed loop of 150 individuals.
But by plugging a Paleolithic brain into a global network, we force it to process the judgment of millions.
It's too much.
It's way too much. The brain interprets this infinite scale of social dynamic as a perpetual state of existential threat. It cannot differentiate between the localized social rejection that might get you exiled from the tribe in 10,000 BCE and a stranger disagreeing with your movie review in 2026. The biological stress response is identical.
I understand the evolutionary mismatch, I really do, but we have to look at the other side of this ledger. If we entirely delete the social internet, we aren't just deleting the anxiety, we are deleting the lifeline.
Okay, let's explore that.
Consider a teenager growing up in an incredibly rural, culturally monolithic town. Maybe they are struggling with a rare chronic illness, or they are navigating a marginalized identity.
Right.
In 1995, that kid was profoundly, dangerously isolated. Today, through these exact same algorithmic platforms, they can find a hyper-niche community of thousands of people experiencing the exact same thing.
Finding their tribe.
Yes, they find shared language, coping mechanisms, and proof that they are not anomalies. Does the benefit of finding your tribe globally outweigh the damage of the slot machine mechanics?
That is the core tension of the modern era.
It's a tough balance.
It is. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the internet facilitates cross-border social connections that provide undeniable psychological relief and, in many documented cases, actively prevents self-harm.
Absolutely.
But we have to examine the cost of that transition.
Yeah.
We traded local comparison for global comparison.
How so?
Well, in a pre-social media environment, an adolescent's baseline for normal was calibrated against the kids in their physical high school. You compared your athletic ability, your wealth, and your attractiveness to a localized average.
You only had to be funnier than the funniest kid in your homeroom.
Precisely. Today, that localized average has been obliterated. The algorithm serves up the absolute apex of human performance, beauty, and wealth on a minute-by-minute basis.
Oh, that's brutal when you put it like that.
A teenager isn't comparing themselves to their neighbor. They're comparing their daily reality to the hyper-edited, artificially lit, chemically enhanced highlight reels of billionaires and global influencers.
It's an unwinnable game.
Completely unwinnable. The baseline for what constitutes a successful or acceptable life has been artificially inflated to a standard that is statistically impossible for 99.9% of humanity to achieve. So while the global network provides incredibly specific support systems, it also mandates that you compete in an infinite arena of inadequacy.
If the Dunbar limit proves that our individual brains buckle under the weight of globalized social dynamics, what happens when we zoom out?
To the societal level.
Right. If individual neurochemistry is being hijacked by variable rewards and negativity bias, how does that mechanism scale up to affect our shared perception of reality? How does a society functionally agree on facts when its citizens are addicted to outrage?
It creates an epistemic fracture.
Epistemic fracture.
Yeah. The architecture designed to maximize your time on site fundamentally alters the flow and texture of macro-level information.
The thought experiment in our sources provides a brilliant contrast using the scenario of a foreign earthquake.
It's a very stark contrast.
In the alternate timeline, an earthquake strikes a continent away on a Tuesday afternoon. There is no real-time telemetry delivered to your pocket. There are no trending hashtags algorithmically surfacing the most terrifying images.
No doom scrolling the disaster.
No shaky smartphone footage uploaded within seconds of the first tremor. And crucially, there are no reaction videos from people sitting in their cars in Ohio offering geopolitically ignorant hot takes 15 minutes after the event.
Because the information is bottlenecked by the constraints of traditional media production.
Exactly. You find out about the earthquake when you sit down for the evening news. A professional anchor reads a vetted script. The footage is edited. The tone is somber, objective, and contained.
It's structured.
The speed of the information is dictated by the time required to verify its accuracy, not the desire to monopolize human attention. The entire family processes the disaster simultaneously within a shared, calm context.
Contrast the mechanics of that evening news broadcast with the staggering reality mapped out by the Pew Research Center in 2025 and 2026.
Oh, the Pew data on news is bleak.
Very. The metrics reveal a complete decoupling from traditional informational baselines. Only 36% of U.S. adults follow the news all or most of the time.
Just 36%.
That is a precipitous drop from 51% just a decade ago in 2016. Furthermore, our connection to our immediate physical environment is evaporating. Only 21% of Americans follow local news very closely, down from 37%.
People are actively tuning out the traditional broadcasts. And it isn't because they don't care about the world, it's because the delivery mechanism feels archaic to a brain conditioned for high-velocity dopamine.
Exactly, which explains the rise of the news influencer.
Right. Pew notes that 20% of adults are now regularly getting their news from individual influencers on social media.
We really have to look at why that is happening. If you offer a human brain the choice between a dry, fact-based reading of a municipal budget by a local anchor or a highly emotive, visually overstimulating rant by an influencer who perfectly mirrors the user's existing biases.
The brain is going to choose the influencer every single time.
Every single time. It feels better. It provides the illusion of being informed while actually just massaging the ego.
You are describing the phenomenon of informational inbreeding.
That's exactly what it is. The algorithm identifies your baseline bias, perhaps a slight distrust of a certain institution. It then feeds you content that validates that distrust, which releases dopamine.
And then it narrows.
Right. As you engage with that content, the recommendation engine narrows the funnel, feeding you increasingly extreme versions of that same narrative. It strips away any contradictory evidence because cognitive dissonance causes friction, and friction causes users to close the app.
Wow.
Over time, your worldview is continually bred with identical biases until the resulting reality is completely detached from the objective world.
And the trust in the old gatekeepers is just gone.
Entirely.
Pew found that 57% of adults have little to no confidence in journalists to act in the public's best interest. It's not just that people prefer influencers, it's that they actively view traditional journalism as hostile.
And this plays out incredibly clearly in the political demographics. Democrats are vastly more likely than Republicans to use and trust major news sources.
So the shared reality hasn't just fractured, it has segregated.
Segregated is the perfect word, which brings us to perhaps the most fascinating and, frankly, surreal artifact in our entire source stack.
Yes.
To truly illustrate the depth of this epistemological crisis, we need to look at the CDC's Youth Risk Behavior Surveillance System itself.
The YRBSS. And before we detail this, we must emphasize to the listener, we are maintaining rigorous impartiality here.
Absolutely. We are not evaluating the morality or the factual accuracy of the political claims we're about to discuss. We are examining this purely as a meta-epistemological artifact.
Right, a symptom of how societies process truth in a post-social media world.
Exactly. Just the facts of the situation exactly as they exist in the government database without taking any sides on the underlying cultural debate.
So what's happening on the CDC site?
On the official Department of Health and Human Services webpage hosting the YRBSS data, there is a massive government-mandated disclaimer. Because of a January 2025 court order, the agency was forced to restore the website to a previous version containing specific public health guidance.
Okay.
However, the current administration, the Trump administration, appended a disclaimer directly onto the page. The disclaimer explicitly rejects the concept of gender ideology, labeling the very information hosted on that page as extremely inaccurate and disconnected from truth.
The government disclaimer finishes by stating, this page does not reflect reality, and therefore the administration and this department reject it.
Look at the mechanics of what is happening there. This is a foundational database of national statistics. Historically, a database is the bedrock of objective reality.
It's just numbers.
But in 2025, the database itself has become an active battleground over the definition of truth. One administration compiles and publishes data. The subsequent administration is legally compelled to host the data, but attaches a label declaring that the data literally does not reflect reality.
It is the ultimate manifestation of the algorithmic mindset bleeding into the physical architecture of government. We no longer possess a singular ledger of facts.
We don't.
It fundamentally forces us to reconsider the utopian promises of Silicon Valley in the early 2000s. The pitch was always that connecting the world would intrinsically make it better.
That was the dream.
Right. Giving everyone a voice would mathematically result in a stronger, more informed democracy. But looking at the fragmentation, we have to ask, does social media make democracy stronger or simply louder?
Or more chaotic.
Are we actually more informed about the mechanics of our government, or are we just perpetually overwhelmed, suffering from cognitive rationing, trying to survive a tidal wave of conflicting realities?
The irony of the information age is that access to unlimited data did not yield unprecedented clarity. It yielded unprecedented paralysis.
When the cost of broadcasting information drops to zero, the value of the information approaches zero.
And the only currency left is human attention.
Which brings us to the final reckoning, the great trade-off. We've traced the thought experiment from the quiet morning to the terrifyingly blank stranger at the bar.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We've unpacked the neurochemistry of the slot machine and the collapse of the evening news. We've looked at the CDC database literally arguing with itself. It is time to weigh the scales.
Let's do it.
If we catalog the casualties of the social internet, what exactly did we sacrifice when we logged on?
Well, based on the text, the primary casualty is cognitive sovereignty.
Cognitive sovereignty.
We surrendered the right to direct our own attention. By allowing algorithms to mediate our interaction with the world, we fractured our attention spans, severely compromising our ability to engage in deep, sustained focus.
That's so true.
Secondly, we lost the sanctuary of unreachability. The expectation of infinite availability dissolved the boundary between the public self and the private self.
We also eradicated boredom. And I mean boredom in the purest, most vital sense.
Yes, the neurological necessity of boredom.
Right, because when the brain is starved of external stimuli, the default mode network activates.
Exactly. This is the state where memory consolidation occurs, where disparate ideas synthesize into creativity, where you actually process your own identity.
But by filling every micro moment of friction, waiting in line for coffee, riding the elevator, sitting at a red light with algorithmic content, we starved the default mode network.
We traded deep introspection for cheap entertainment.
Okay, let's unpack this because we have to look at the other side of the ledger. The gains are staggering and structurally permanent.
They really are.
If we look at the R world and data research, the sheer utility of the connected world is miraculous. The ability to send international remittances instantly, allowing an immigrant to financially support a family in another hemisphere with zero friction.
Incredible utility.
The internet allowed for the explosion of decentralized economies.
The democratization of commerce is undeniably profound. A craftsman operating out of a garage in a remote village can now bypass traditional retail gatekeepers and access a global consumer base.
And the democratization of voice. We talked about the noise, but we cannot ignore that traditional media gatekeepers often actively suppressed marginalized voices.
Very true.
Social media provided the necessary infrastructure for grassroots movements to coordinate instantly, bypassing the evening news entirely to show the world unedited footage of injustice.
It leveled the playing field in many ways.
It built entirely new creative classes, independent podcasters, digital educators, open source developers. Without social media, many businesses and communities simply wouldn't exist.
The network is chaotic and exhausting, but it's also the most potent engine for human collaboration ever constructed.
It is the ultimate amplification technology.
Every tool humanity has ever developed, from fire to the printing press to nuclear fission, acts as a force multiplier for our baseline nature. Social media simply took the tribal, anxious, connection-starved, deeply curious Paleolithic primate and handed it a megaphone with infinite range.
So, knowing the mechanics of the dopamine machine, knowing the political fracture, but also knowing the economic miracles and the global support systems, let me ask you, the listener, a direct question.
This is the big one.
Imagine someone walks into your room right now. They place a physical, mechanical button on the table in front of you. They tell you that pressing this button will instantly and permanently erase social media from human history.
Goof, gone.
The algorithms disappear. The infinite scroll vanishes. We revert to the quiet internet of utility. Knowing everything we lost and everything we gained, would you press it?
Answering that requires you to decide what you value more. The agonizing, beautiful chaos of infinite connection, or the quiet, terrifying responsibility of inner silence.
Wow.
To synthesize everything we've explored today. The engineers in Silicon Valley promised they were building tools to bring the world closer together.
And they did.
Functionally, they succeeded beyond their wildest dreams. But the real 2 a.m. question we have to grapple with isn't how social media changed humanity.
What is the real question?
The question is whether we permanently altered our own souls the exact second we accepted the premise that every mundane moment of our existence required an audience.
Oh, man.
We didn't just adopt a new communication protocol. We adopted an entirely new philosophy of being, a philosophy that dictates that to be perceived by the algorithm is to be real, and to be offline is to simply cease to exist.
That is heavy. And it leads me to one final thought for you to take with you. Tonight, when you finally climb into bed, when the lights are off and you put your phone down on the nightstand, I want you to pick it back up.
Just for a second.
Don't unlock it. Just look at the blank black glass screen for 5 seconds. Look at your own reflection in the dark glass. And ask yourself, who are you when absolutely no one is watching? Thanks for taking this deep dive with us. See you next time.